all for coming. This is very special. And to anyone who went to Whitfield, this painting is very special, and we do have a lot of information about it. But first of all, I want to introduce you to Mrs. Samuelo. Will you come up and say hello? Mrs. Samuelo was the kindergarten teacher in the room where the painting was, and it was because of Mrs. Samuelo that we have the painting. She is the one that worked all summer trying to get it off the wall, and so she can tell us more.
Well,
Here, you have to come real close.
we knew that the school was closing. First of all, the clock system broke and nobody knew what time it was, so we knew that that was the end. So I knew that why would we let the school be closed with this beautiful picture in it? So I called the West Bloomfield Historical Society, and Jim Larman came out, and then he got another artist to come, and we had several people trying to get it off the wall, but the picture is on canvas, and it was glued so tight to the wall that they had to break the plaster to get it down. So it took a long time, and there was a little bit of damage to it, but it looks gorgeous now. I visited it yesterday. And then I was only at Whitfield my first year of teaching. I was only 21 years old. And then the next year, there weren't enough kids for 2 kindergarten teachers, so then I was transferred to Franklin School. And I was there for quite a few years, and then I was able to come back to Whitfield, and that's what, in 1985, that's when I was in this classroom with the fireplace and the picture.
And it was a blessing, wasn't it?
Yes, beautiful.
It probably calmed the children. Thank you, Mrs. Samuelo. And I put it on Facebook, and a lot of her former students have sent in greetings and sent her hugs and so forth. So then the other two, I want Ken and Shar Gamble to stand. If you would like to say something. Ken is the nephew of Roy Gamble. He is the nephew of the man that did all these paintings. And Ken and Shar used to live down here on the point on the property that Roy Gamble bought in 1970. Is that correct? Or when he? We bought it. Oh, you bought it in 70, but he lived, yeah, I was thinking. Okay. It was long before that Roy Gamble actually lived here in Sylvan Lake in the summertime on a cottage. So please look at these fabulous paintings. They are the originals. These are painted or drawn by Roy Gamble himself. So we're thankful for that. And another person I want you to meet, you stand up, Ron. This is Ron Gay. And I met Ron at one of our Whitfield reunions several years ago, and Ron actually had my mother for a teacher at Whitfield. But Ron is the one that built the frame that goes around the painting in City Hall, and it looks just like it did in the school, and that's what our goal was. We wanted to transfer the painting to City Hall, where it's safe and it's temperature controlled. There's someone in the building all the time. We know it's going to be taken care of, which is very important. So let's get on with, this is Charles Fisher. He and his brother, it says Fisher Brothers, he and his brother were, Charles was the engineer that was the architect for Whitfield School. And he actually lived on Oakwood. Do you recognize this house? Yeah, this is Barbara Ash's house. And I'm almost positive this is his house because it doesn't look like any other houses on the street. It looks like it's designed by an architect. And the other houses are very different. So he lived here in Sylvan Lake. I'm guessing that his children went to Whitfield. And so that's another connection with the painting. So it was, and then he also was the architect for City Hall. Can you see the similarities? City Hall, or Whitfield was designed in 27, and City Hall in 1929. Can you see the similarities in the two buildings? So that's kind of a neat thing. And our City Hall is almost going to be 100 years old in this decade. So, and this is I'm just going to give you a little bit of history. This is the very first school in Sylvan Lake. Actually, it was Bloomfield Township at that time. It was on a triangle piece of land right where the driveway was that was next to the Edison. The teachers, anybody that drove to school would drive down that driveway, and the school was right there on a triangle piece of property. And that school was there until 1894. Actually, we were able to receive the cornerstone from the school. And in the cornerstone, it gives the history going back to 1852. Every single meeting they had, someone wrote the minutes. And all of that is in an archival box, and that's going to be in City Hall. And I have made copies, and the Historical Society, in fact, Barbara did it herself. Barbara Fry, I should introduce you to. She ran it through their scanner, and it's now on a disk or on a flash drive. So we have saved all of this. But thinking back to 1852, that's 150 years ago. This school was built, and they said they were only going to spend $300, and I'm sure they didn't spend a penny more. But anyway. This was then in 1894, then the second school was built. And this was like a cottage-style school. It was, isn't it quaint? Wouldn't that be a fun school to go to? And you can see on the far right, there's part that they've added onto. What else do you notice in this picture? You can see that eyebrow window on the far left for you? Yes, that is the new school that's being built when this picture was taken. And the smokestack goes to the third school. So this is, it's really neat to have this picture. So this is the third and final Whitfield School. And this is very dear to me because I went there from kindergarten through 6th grade. And we knew everybody in the school. There were about 200 students. We just had it was just wonderful. It was like Sylvan still is, you know, it's just such a warm place to live. So, and you can see there were two entrances, and that goes to the kindergarten room right there. So there was an entrance, I guess you could say, for the girls and one for the boys going right in there, and that would be where the coat room would be too. So here is something very special. Cindy's father was a good friend of Roy Gamble, and she was able to find this original letter that Mr. Fisher, Charles Fisher, wrote to Roy Gamble to commission the painting back in 1928. And the last line, it says, "Many thanks, dear friend, for your kindness to Mrs. Fisher and myself." So I'm thinking that Charles Fisher and Roy Gamble were good friends, that they knew each other. And so he commissioned this painting. I don't know how they decided what the subject should be, but he was the one and it was $200 he paid for this painting back in 1928. Here is an old picture, the way it looked and Sharon wasn't in kindergarten with me, but Sharon came in 1st grade. So this is the way it looked when I was a student, because this is before color photography for one thing. But you can see that they didn't take the side parts because they'd have to somehow glue it together. I'm guessing that there wasn't anything up there before the painting was finished and put there. So This is from the 1930s. The teacher back, she has like two white ribbons or bow in the front of her dress. She was my first grade teacher, and we just loved her. But you can see the painting with this class picture of the boys and girls sitting there. See the snowman on the bulletin board in the back. But that's what the room looked like. And this is Mr. Houston, who actually, we bought our house from Mr. Houston in 1970. So he's dear to my heart, too. And this is what another part of the classroom looked like. So it was a very quaint arts and crafts type style. And right at that black part in the middle of the picture is a cat. It's a tile of a cat. And I'll show you another one. So we have thought all along that was Pewabic tile. And about in August, a man from Pewabic called me and asked he wanted to know all about the Pewabic tile here in our community center. So I sent him all the information that I had, and then I started asking him questions, and he thought that there might be Pewabic tile in Whitfield School, but the school is gone, so we don't really know for sure. But this is what the close-up of the cat looks like. But he said, his name was Eric Graham, he said, no, that is not Pewabic tile. That is faience. It's from Flint. Way back when they were making spark plugs, the top part of the spark plug is ceramic. And so that company, when they weren't making spark plugs, they started making tile. And so they did it for a short period of time, but there aren't any records of that. But this is what I've been told. So you can see the difference, that it's not, that these are similar because they're both made by the same company. And another side note, which I think I've talked about before, when the school was being demolished, Charles Johnson was the man that owned the company that was doing the demolition. And one day he went into this room and he's looking around, and all of a sudden he saw the cat. And I think that he assumed it was Pewabic. But anyway, he decided to go after it. So he took a chisel and a hammer and went to it. And he did eventually get it out of there. And Mr. Johnson still has it. And I have called him 5 or 6 times. Please, Mr. Johnson, we would like to have that in Sylvan Lake. And he said, oh, my wife likes to collect things from the schools. So I'm sorry, we still don't have it. But I haven't given up. He was very cordial, very, very nice when I talked to him last week. But that would be nice to go with our painting. Okay, so this is at the time that they were demolishing it. You can see how rough it looks inside and how the painting is already gone. And this is during the demolition of the school that happened in 2003. I see you shaking your head, Mitch. I agree. It was very sad. I used to walk over there at least once a week and look, and I brought home some the blackboards, the slate. It was real slate. I brought home some pieces of slate and some wood and little pieces of stuff that's in our garage, which I should probably show you someday. But anyway, it was such a sad time for all of us who went to Whitfield. So this is the poem that, and do you remember singing the song? The song that goes with it? Yes, and so you can see the lambs. And the story goes that really is true, that Mary did take a lamb to school because his mother had rejected him or her. And so but it had to stay outside, but the lamb waited for her to go home. So it's a very charming poem. It goes back to the early 1800s. So now we'll go on to Roy Gamble, the man who painted the famous painting from Whitfield. Roy Gamble was born in 1887 and he died in 1972. He grew up in Detroit He lived on 14th Street, which is near the DIA now. He went to Central High School, and he studied at the Detroit Fine Arts Academy, the Arts Students League in New York, and a French academy. One funny thing that I read was that he was going to go to France, to Paris, to study with a friend of his. And they had made arrangements. They were going to meet at the dock, and they would go to Paris together. Well, he got there, and his friend wasn't there. His friend decided not to go, but Roy decided he was going to go anyway. So he did. And he spent several years in France, and he went to the southern part of France where Monet and the Impressionists were painting. So a lot of his paintings look like that. So, and one thing that I have here is that he painted on the outside of the cabins of the fresh air camp. Sharon and I would remember the camp that was right here where we are. This is where the activities building was, right here in this spot. And we would come down here and watch movies with the kids that were campers. So that was a really fun thing to do. And this is a painting that Roy did that he gave to his high school after the First World War. He had served as a medic in the war, but he never gave up painting. Many of his paintings, you can see some here, were from, you can see over there, the medic, where he was helping people that had been injured. So this is a painting that he did to leave as a memorial to his high school, and then it was moved from Central High School to Cass Avenue to Tuxedo Street in 1926. So you can see it had an effect on him. So we were able to find this sketch of the painting. It was just a little thing, but isn't that neat that we even have that? This is the preliminary sketch before he would do the real painting. And this is the beautiful painting that he did in 1928. And it was in the school until 1991 when the school closed, which was a very sad day. He painted it in 1928, and as Carol said, it was stuck to the wall. We think that maybe there was nothing up there before the painting went up. That was just a blank wall. And then in order to put the painting up there, he used very, very, very strong glue. It was meant to stay forever, apparently. And so then Carol said they had asked several artists, they asked the DIA, and nobody really gave them any help or any idea of how to get it off the wall. But then he called the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society, in which Sylvan Lake is part of. And Jim Lehrman, who was the president at that time, came to the school, and he used, I wanted a 10-pound mallet and a chisel to get it off the wall. And they took the plaster with it. So there was still plaster on the back of the painting. This is a picture that was in the Oakland Press of Jim taking it off the wall in the school. You can see it's peeling back at the top. And he said after that, the members of the board at the Historical Society would sit in a circle around the painting when they had their meetings, and they'd each take a section and try to get that plaster off, because some of it was an inch thick. So they worked and worked and worked, and there was still a lot there, this is what it looked like later on. Because then they hung it up in the museum, in the Historical Museum, and it was there for 20 years. And I was on the board at that time, so they asked me if we would like to bring it to Sylvan Lake. I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh, what a treasure. I would love that to be in Sylvan Lake. That's where it started. That's where it belongs. So they decided to put it on a permanent loan. That's not, well, I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. So I called three different restoration companies and asked them, and they all came out. They looked at the painting because they knew who Roy Gamble was. They knew it had some value. So they came out, and the range was from $8,000 to $3,000. So we went with the Detroit Institute of Arts to restore the painting. And Carol saw it yesterday, and she said it looks beautiful. So it took about 2 years because I don't have these in the exact right order for this. This is the man that did the restoration work. And they allowed him to do this at the DIA. This is in the basement area of the DIA. And I would go every once in a while to visit Mary and see how he was coming along with the painting. And it took 2 years completely to finish it because he would work on this painting and then he would work on another one. He didn't work steadily on each painting because it would be too tedious probably. So this was in 2014. One of his favorite subjects were children. And the Scaife family, I did not know them, but we used to sneak down. Sharon will remember, we were not allowed to cross Orchard Lake Road when we were growing up. It was gravel road, 2-lane, but still, we had to stay on Sylvan Lake. Well, at least once a summer, we'd sneak across Orchard Lake Road and go to this house over there. And it was like a haunted house. It was, the windows were broken, the doors were gone, but there was an old upright piano in there. And we used to play on that. But it was just the adventure of crossing Orchard Lake Road, going to this house that was kind of like haunted. And I think that's where the Scaife family had lived. So he loved to paint these children in that family. And these are all this, this is Jane Atkins. And with these pictures, these with the lake, are quite likely to be done right here in Sylvan. And many of them are in Butterworth Hospital in Grand Rapids. They have about 100 of his paintings. It's amazing. It's really a beautiful place to visit. Well, in 1914, he was commissioned to paint 5 paintings in the Detroit Free Press building. I think it's on Woodward in Detroit. And they were all to be the history of Detroit. So this would be the first one, the landing of Cadillac, who was, a lot is known for him in the area. And this is another one, bartering with the Indians when they first arrived. And he also painted many, many politicians and businessmen. If you go to Lansing, you'll see many of his paintings in the capital of businessmen. This is all the same man, but they are all a different view and probably a different age. But he said, the better I know of a person, the better I can paint them. So I'm sure this man was very happy. He was a governor. Now you see, Shar and Ken have the original of this sketch. Isn't that priceless? It's this one right here. This is Freckles. His name was Tommy Atkins, and he was a camper at the Fresh Air Camp. And since he was living down on the point, he could come over here and he could paint the pictures of the children that were going to camp. And this painting, I'll show you this is the final picture of, and Shar said there's not a color picture of this, I looked online and I did not find one. But he won a gold medal at the Scarab Club for this painting. The Scarab Club is a small building behind the DIA. It's right near the parking lot for the DIA, and you can go in. And one thing that Roy Gamble was the first artist to sign his name up high on a beam in the building. And it's still there. I saw it when I went one of my trips down there. So that's very special to him. These are some pictures of him working. Well, here, the one on your left is this here. He's painting Ty Cobb. Is that right? He was a baseball player. Remember his name? And the man on the right is Floyd Nixon. Both of them painted nursery rhymes on the cabins at the fresh air camp. This is what the cabins look like. This is what the camp looked like here. So on this side, you can see the cabins. And I'm sorry, I've never seen a picture of that. So it's unfortunate. But that would have been really fun for the kids, I think, to see those nursery rhymes. So the restoring of the painting. There were some holes in it. There were places where it had to be repainted. But first of all, they had to get all the plaster off the back because it was harming the painting. So that's what took so long for Mr. Ackerman to work on. So I told you we got 3 estimates. We decided on the DIA, and then we had several fundraisers, and Char and I went to Burger King one night, and we raised about $65, and teachers and students sent in money, and we raised the $3,000. We were thrilled. So then the painting went down to the DIA. Oh, these are some notes that I wrote after one of my trips to visit Mary. After this awful winter, I decided to go to the DIA to visit our Mary. Alfred Ackerman, conservator at the DIA, had been working on the painting since August 2013. All of the plaster and adhesive have been removed from the back. The next project will be to attach new stretcher bars, those around the outside and in the middle. A new piece of fabric will go over the stretcher bars. There was lead in the paint, and Mr. Ackerman had to wear a mask and pull the fumes out of the building with suction. There was still some hard coating on the back that doesn't react to solvents. It won't cause problems with the front of the painting. Some of the layers of plaster were a ½ inch thick. Some areas of the painting have been relaxed, where the heaviest layer of plaster was buckling and causing tension. Next, the tears in the canvas will be repaired. The tears will be filled with paint and then the painting restored. It should be finished by May or June. And as a side note, Alfred Ackerman studied restoration under Sheldon Keck, one of the World War II monuments men. You know the movie where they found all the paintings that Germany had stolen? So that was a good plus for him. So here he is. He finished the painting, and then he retired. So that was really nice. But yes, you must finish our painting first. So this is the day I picked it up, I think. A man from the Historical Society had a van, and we went down there and picked it up, and it came back to Sylvan Lake, and we were thrilled. And this is Ron, who helped build the frame around it. And Paul is the one that helped transport the painting back to Sylvan Lake. And we can also thank the Historical Society for paying for the frame that Ron made and put up, it's up pretty high on the wall, so it was tricky. Well, this is a little bit about the poem. It says it's the most popular nursery rhyme of all time. I can't back that up, but one of the things was that Henry Ford found the schoolhouse that Mary had gone to. You know how he has the village at Greenfield Village. Well, he did this out east. This is in Massachusetts. So he found the schoolhouse and he moved it to Sudbury, or to Sterling. They're nearby. Oh, to Sudbury, where it is today. And so you can go and it's now in a historical area with other buildings. So this is what the original schoolhouse looks like. And another neat thing, this is kind of interesting. In February of 1878, Thomas Edison patented the phonograph. And the first thing that he read on the phonograph was the Mary Had a Little Lamb poem. Isn't that something? And this is a letter that he wrote to Henry Ford. And they were good friends, too. Well, who did I talk to this about? Cindy. The thing is, and we want to keep this quiet, Pontiac schools technically still own the painting. 4 of us went before the school board. The president of the Historical Society, a lawyer, myself, who was the other person? And it was a little bit scary for me because I didn't know what they were going to say. So we talked about it, and in the end, they agreed to let Sylvan Lake put the painting, to display the painting as a permanent, acquisition. So just don't go and talk about it with anybody in Pontiac schools. I mean, Mrs. Samuel was worried that it might go to another school in Pontiac. And originally there were 28 elementary schools. There were over 20 schools in elementary only in Pontiac. Now there are 4 elementary schools in Pontiac. So it's very likely that the painting would have been lost. It would have been gone. So we really can thank and applaud Mrs. Samuel for saving the painting because, and she took, yes. She did it right away because nobody knew when or how they were going to tear the school down, or if, at that point, they were just closing the school because they didn't have enough students and the money problems in Pontiac and so forth. But I'm going to give you a bonus. So anyway, let me do this and then you can ask questions. You can see our beautiful Pewabic tile up here. In August, Eric Graham contacted me, I did tell you this already, from Pewabic. And he wanted to come and see this, which he did. And because we have always been like 98% sure it's Pewabic, but not 100%. So he came to see it and he said, yes, this is Pewabic tile, which we are thrilled to have. It's very unusual to see the tiles that make letters. So this is a picture of Mary Chase Perry. She later married William Stratton, who was the architect that actually designed the Sylvan Lake Inn. And this is a man on the right, Horace Hawkins, who was her partner. Mr. Hawkins he developed the kiln to fire the clay after it had been shaped in whatever shape you wanted it. So they became partners. But she was the one that had the idea of making it special pottery, and which is still in business today. So we are very fortunate for that. This is the way it looked. So he found, I do have a picture of that. Eric Graham found this in the Free Press from 1916. A recent gift to the camp that is the admiration of everyone is a beautiful tile inscription above the big fireplace in Assembly Hall. The inscription, "I warm the hand and cheer the heart," was made and presented by Miss Mary Chase Perry of the Pewabic Pottery. Mounted on a concrete slab 5 feet long by 8 inches wide, it is harmonious combination of unglazed tile with bright and iridescent glazes. So we are extremely fortunate to have this as well. This is a Detroit thing, and so was Roy Gamble. I'm sure they probably knew each other. They lived at the same time. So we are thrilled to have this too, and to know for sure that it is Pewabic. This is the way it looked when she gave it to the camp. And this is the old fireplace in the activities building that was right here. That was our original community center, right here. So I wish we had saved the fieldstone, but that's my opinion. Anyway, that's what it looked like, and the man was in the process of taking, so, your next door neighbor, Marlene. Your next door neighbor, Joanne Eberhardt, went down to Pewabic. She found a man, the expert on taking it out of the old fireplace, and so he came out and worked on it and got it out, and they saved it, and then they put it back in our new community center in 2008. So we're very, very thankful that that was saved as well. So it takes one person, like Mrs. Samuelo and like Joanne, to save these things. And look what they're throwing away these days. Anyway, so that's probably, and this is our new community center. So that's it. Are there any questions?
Most of the schools in Pontiac, unfortunately, when they take them down, everything's left. There have been pictures of Webster, there have been pictures of Central, of just the records scattered all over the place, the books left in the library. So the fact that you made an effort to save this painting, if you hadn't, it would be gone. Because there was no money and apparently nobody that cared. So thank you.
But another thing, I have a book back there that has lots and lots of information about the whole process, even the legal stuff from the school system. And I made a packet that is behind, Ron put it in the back of that painting, so if anybody ever wants to know anything at all about the painting, it's behind the painting. And then I gave it to the secretaries in City Hall, and I have a packet. So it should be saved. People should know how important it is to everybody, really. Oh, my outfit. Well, I made this to go with the painting. I wanted to look like Mary. I made this. This is actually a jumper that I made probably 20 years ago. This, I think, was a pillowcase that I let the sides out. The pantaloons are actually, what do you call them? Capri pants that I added eyelet to. And the blouse I had. Oh, and this is my hat that goes with Mary.
Yes, tell us about the
Oh, the top. Oh, the top. This is an old quilt, and it had lots of holes in it, so I covered up the holes with buttons. So, and she's carrying her hat like this. So it kind of goes together. You know, there was a lot, as Mrs. Samuelo says, there was a lot of stuff. And I would, I'd go walk over there and bring home what I could. And bricks. You know, we have this, the cornerstone is the only thing that's left in our park, in our Veterans Park, our Memorial Day Park. I think they're going to move it because they're going to put an obelisk, how do you say that? Anyway, they're going to put it in the center where the Whitfield cornerstone is. But that is made with Whitfield bricks. Edison has moved out. I have not heard one thing about the property. But that's maybe, Jim, do you know about the Edison property?
Yeah, I have talked to Edison, and they have no plans of ever exiting that property. Given that it sits right underneath a power grid, it's useful in the future, and remediating that soil would be just problematic. So they'll probably never leave that. They might use it for training. They might use it. Who knows in the future, do they make some investment there because of the power grid? But their comments to us, and that sits in Bloomfield Township. That does not sit in Sylvan Lake. So we have no jurisdiction. I think in the 20s, but it might even be older than that. Yeah, but they have no plans on leaving.
I think that building there was there before the last Whitfield School. It was early 20s, I think, that it was built. But if I don't know that many of you know about the Four Corners, we call it. When you come in Pontiac Drive and where Stone Soap is, to the right is a spot where 4 townships come together. It's very interesting. You almost never find this. But it's right here. This way is Waterford. This way is Pontiac. Southwest is West Bloomfield, and southeast is Bloomfield Township. But all of them come together. It's behind the fence. If you park in the Stone Soap driveway, there's a wayside sign there on the corner. If you walk up about 50 feet and look through the fence, you can see a metal stake that is there, that was put there. Well, the original one was put there 1817. Anyway, please come and look at these original Roy Gamble paintings. They are just amazing. And to think this is an original of the Freckles painting that he did, that he earned a gold medal for. Isn't that charming? And he just loved kids, and he loved drawing and painting kids. So thank you all for being here.